Good morning, Australia. It's Monday, February 10th, 2025, and you're watching Australian Lads News Morning. I'm First Galaxy Australian 2K10.
And I'm Yanes Wandens 13. We're here to kickstart your morning with the latest news, headlines, and everything you need to know to begin your day. News 1. The US President, Donald Trump, has signed an executive order to cut financial assistance to South Africa, accusing the country's government of unjust racial discrimination against white Afrikaners and offering them asylum in the US. The order criticized a law signed by the South African president, Cyril Ramaphosa, last month that allows for land to be expropriated with nil compensation in limited circumstances. South Africa was ruled by white Afrikaner leaders during apartheid, which violently repressed the country's black majority, including forcing them to live in segregated townships and rural homelands. Afrikaners are descended mainly from the Dutch, who began colonizing South Africa in 1652, as well as French Huguenot refugees sponsored by the Dutch. More than 3 decades after white minority rule ended, South Africa remains hugely unequal, with land and wealth still largely concentrated among white people, who make up 7% of the population, about half native Afrikaans speakers, while black people are 81%. However, some white South Africans claim they are discriminated against, often citing the country's affirmative action laws. Trump's executive order, signed on Friday, said there were countless government policies designed to dismantle equal opportunity in employment, education, and business, and hateful rhetoric in government actions fueling disproportionate violence against racially disfavored landowners. It added, in addition, South Africa has taken aggressive positions towards the United States and its allies, including accusing Israel, not Hamas, of genocide in the International Court of Justice, and reinvigorating its relations with Iran to develop commercial, military, and nuclear arrangements. News 2. On a foggy, frigid morning in Saxony, far-right MP René Bachmann could not believe his party's luck in the final days of the German election campaign, with all eyes on Alternative für Deutschland, AfD. Since conservative frontrunner Friedrich Merz signaled a taboo-breaking openness to AfD support for his hardline course on border policy, voters visiting Bachmann's information stands in small towns such as Schkeuditz have had one issue at the front of their minds: immigration. Herr Merz has a dilemma, said Bachmann, speaking to The Observer. He sees the AfD's poll ratings and knows he's got to do something to keep us at bay. But voters doubt he'll be able to do what he says, on immigration, and so the only way to really show they want change is to vote for us. Merz's centre-right CDU-CSU alliance is hotly tipped to come first in the 23rd of February election with about 30% support, while the anti-migrant, anti-Islam AfD has held second place for months in the polls at just over 20%. Merz's dramatic ploy to court far-right support in Parliament for his uncompromising migration policies has failed to lure back AfD voters, opinion surveys suggest, with only negligible movement in support. Meanwhile, his characteristically impulsive stunt has shifted debate away from what polls say is Merz's strongest selling point, the parlor state of the German economy. At the same time, his mercurial tactics appear to be stoking doubts about how he would govern. News 3. Elon Musk's rapid attempt to defund and depopulate the federal government has thrown US politics into chaos while the billionaire's so-called Department of Government Efficiency seizes control of operations at key agencies. Carrying out this hostile takeover are a team of staffers made up of wealthy executives, far-right ideologues, and young engineers that have come to make up Doge. At government institutions such as the Treasury Department, General Services Administration and United States Agency for International Development, Musk's allies have gained access to computer systems, including the sensitive personal data and payment information of tens of millions of Americans. His team is working to shut down USAID, the world's largest single supplier of humanitarian aid, and members have been spotted at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, Department of Education and National Institutes of Health. News 4. The Irish boxer John Cooney has died, his promoter Mark Dunlop has announced, a week after he was injured in a fight in Belfast. A statement on Monday said that the 28-year-old was in intensive care following his defeat to the Welshman Nathan Howells at the Ulster Hall last Saturday. The bout was stopped in the 9th round and Cooney had subsequently undergone surgery after it was discovered he had an intracranial hemorrhage. The bout was his first defense of the Celtic super featherweight title. A further statement was posted on Saturday night by Dunlop on behalf of the Cooney family. confirming that the boxer had died after a week of battling for his life. It read, "It is with complete devastation that we have to announce that after a week of battling for his life, John Cooney has sadly passed away. Mr. and Mrs. Cooney and his fiancée Emmeline would like to thank the staff at Belfast's Royal Victoria Hospital who have worked tirelessly to save John's life, and for everyone who has sent messages of support and praise. He was a much-loved son, brother, and partner, and it will take us all a lifetime to forget how special he was. R.I.P. John the Kid Cooney." Cooney won the title with a win over Liam Gaynor in Dublin in November 2023, but spent a year out of the ring with a hand injury. He returned in October with a victory over Tamhula Maharusi. News 5, Rita and Philip Potter, from Norfolk, said they never gave up hope on her being found one day after thieves stole their Labrador Daisy from their garden in November 2017. The theft inspired online appeals, and 100,000 people petitioned the government to increase efforts to prevent pet theft. In 2024, the previous government passed the Pet Abduction Act, which included a maximum 5-year prison sentence for offenders. Kim Walters, an RSPCA inspector, found Daisy, now 13 years old, with untreated memory masses more than 200 miles away during routine investigations in Weston-super-Mare, Somerset, on the 2nd of February. After taking Daisy to a vet, the inspector discovered the Labrador's microchip, where she found contact details for the Potters. The couple could barely contain their emotion when Daisy was returned to them at their home in Old Buckingham on Thursday. Rita Potter, 80, said she and her husband were so grateful to the RSCPA for reuniting them with Daisy, adding their pet would be given lots of love and attention. "We kept a photograph on the mantelpiece and would look at it every day, thinking of her and where she might be. So it is an absolute dream come true that the RSPCA found her and have returned her to us, where she belongs. We are so grateful," she said. Walters, the inspector who found Daisy, urged anyone with information about the theft to contact the RSPCA or the police. "I was a bit choked from listening to them and clearly how much they loved her, so it was great telling them that we could get her back home soon once we had made sure she was fit enough to travel and we had arrangements in place for the 4-hour journey to take place," she said. Witnesses said they saw Daisy being bundled into a truck near the Potter's house by suspected backyard breeders. Backyard breeding is described by the RSPCA as the irresponsible breeding of animals in inadequate conditions with insufficient care. The couple reported the incident to the police, but the vehicle's number plate could not be traced. The theft of Daisy was reported far and wide and even gained the attention of Hollywood actor Tom Hardy, who shared the couple's social media posts. "We know she is elderly now and has health issues, but whatever time she has left, she will now be surrounded by lots of love and attention," Rita Potter said. "The whole family was so excited to hear the news that my grandchildren went to buy her toys and treats. She also now has not just one but 2 comfy beds." News 6, the remains of all 10 people killed when their small plane crashed into ice on the Bering Sea have been recovered, authorities said. The Nome Volunteer Fire Department made the announcement on its Facebook page Saturday afternoon. Recovery crews had been racing to recover the bodies before a winter storm was expected to hit the region. All 10 individuals aboard the Bering airplane have been officially brought home, the fire department wrote in the social media post at about 3 p.m. Crews were still working on recovering the aircraft, the fire department said. The Bering Air single-engine turboprop plane was traveling from Unalakleet to the hub community of Nome when it disappeared on Thursday afternoon. It was found the next day after an extensive search with all 9 passengers and the pilot dead. As the community tried to process the deadly event, crews worked swiftly on unstable, slushy sea ice to recover the bodies and the wreckage with less than a day before bad weather was expected. Officials said a Black Hawk helicopter would be used to move the aircraft once the bodies had been removed. Among those killed in the crash were Roan Baumgartner and Cameron Hartvigsen. They had traveled to Unalakleet to service a heat recovery system vital to the community's water plant, according to the Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium. "These 2 members of our team lost their lives serving others," David Beveridge, Vice President of Environmental Health and Engineering for the organization, said in a statement. "The loss of these 2 incredible individuals and everyone else on board the plane will be felt all over Alaska. The other people's names have not been released. All 10 people on board the plane were adults, and the flight was a regularly scheduled commuter trip, according to Lieutenant Ben Enders of the Alaska State Troopers. A photo provided by the U.S. Coast Guard showed the plane's splintered body and debris lying on the sea ice. Two people in brightly colored emergency gear circled the wreckage. It's hard to accept the reality of our loss, the Senator Lisa Murkowski said during an evening news conference. Nome's mayor, John Handerland, choked up as he discussed the deaths and the response effort. Nome is a strong community, and in challenging times we come together and support each other. I expect the outpouring of support to continue in the coming days as we all work to recover from this tragic incident, Handerland said. The Cessna Caravan aircraft left Unalakleet at 2:37 p.m. on Thursday, and officials lost contact with it less than an hour later, according to David Olson, Director of Operations for Bering Air. There was light snow and fog, with a temperature of 17 F-8.3 C, according to the National Weather Service. The U.S. Coast Guard said the aircraft went missing about 30 miles, 48 kilometers, southeast of Nome. Radar forensic data provided by the U.S. Civil Air Patrol indicated that at about 3:18 p.m., the plane had some kind of event which caused them to experience a rapid loss in elevation and a rapid loss in speed, Coast Guard Lieutenant CMDR Benjamin McIntyre-Coble said. What that event is, I can't speculate to. McIntyre-Coble said he was unaware of any distress signals from the aircraft. Planes carry an emergency locating transmitter. If exposed to seawater, the device sends a signal to a satellite, which then relays that message back to the Coast Guard to indicate an aircraft may be in distress. No such messages had been received by the Coast Guard, he said. Rescuers were searching the aircraft's last known location by helicopter when the wreckage was spotted, said Mike Salerno, a spokesperson for the U.S. Coast Guard. 2 rescue swimmers were lowered to investigate. Local, state and federal agencies had assisted in the search effort, combing stretches of ice-dotted waters and scouring miles of frozen tundra. The National Transportation Safety Board was sending 9 people to the scene from various states. Flying is an essential mode of transportation in Alaska due to the vastness of the landscape and limited infrastructure. Most communities are not connected to the developed road system that serves the state's most populous region, and it is common to travel by small plane. Some high school teams fly to sporting events against rival high schools, and goods are brought to many communities by barge or by air. The plane's crash marks the 3rd major U.S. aviation mishap in 8 days. A commercial jetliner and an Army helicopter collided near the nation's capital on the 29th of January, killing 67 people. A medical transportation plane crashed in Philadelphia on the 31st of January, killing the 6 people on board and another person on the ground. Bering Air serves 32 villages in western Alaska from hubs in Nome, Kotzebue, and Unalakleet. Most destinations receive twice-daily scheduled flights Monday through Saturday. Unalakleet is a community of about 690 people about 150 miles, about 240 kilometers, southeast of Nome and 395 miles, about 640 kilometers, northwest of Anchorage. The village is on the Iditarod Trail, the route of the world's most famous dog-sled race, during which mushers and their teams must cross the frozen Norton Sound. Nome, a gold rush town, is just south of the Arctic Circle and is known as the ending point of the 1,000-mile, 1,610 kilometers, Iditarod. The city said prayer vigils would be held on Friday for those on board the plane, friends and family, and those involved in search efforts. Coming up next, we take a look at your morning weather forecast. Stay with us. Good morning, Australia. I'm Yanes Wandens 13, here to bring you your latest weather forecast to start your day right. Whether you're heading to work, school, or just stepping outside, let's take a look at what the skies have in store for us. Now, let's take a closer look at the weather in some of Australia's biggest cities. Whether you're heading out to work, school, or just enjoying your Monday, here's what you need to know. Sydney, you're in for a beautiful day ahead. Expect clear skies and mild temperatures, with highs reaching 26 degrees Celsius. Perfect weather for a morning jog, a stroll at Bondi Beach, or even a picnic in the park. Light winds will keep things comfortable, but don't forget the sunscreen. Melbourne, you know the drill, 4 seasons in one day. The morning starts off dry and partly cloudy, but by the afternoon, light showers will start rolling in. Temperatures will peak at 21 degrees, so it's a cooler day overall. If you're heading out, be sure to carry an umbrella, just in case. Brisbane, it's going to be a warm and humid one today. Temperatures will rise to 28 degrees, but watch out for thunderstorms later in the afternoon. Some storms could be intense, bringing heavy rain and gusty winds. Stay updated with alerts and be extra cautious if you're driving later today. Over in Perth, it's looking mostly cloudy, with a high of 23 degrees. A few light showers may develop in the morning, but nothing too serious. If you're stepping out, a light jacket might come in handy, but overall, it should be a pleasant day in the west. Adelaide, expect a breezy day ahead. Winds will pick up from the south, making the 22-degree high feel a little cooler. The skies will be partly cloudy, but no major rain is expected. Hold on to your hats, it's going to be a bit gusty out there. Canberra, it's a chilly start to the day with morning temperatures dropping to single digits. However, as the sun rises, it'll gradually warm up to a high of 18 degrees. A perfect day to grab a warm coffee and enjoy the fresh air. So, there you have it, your major city weather update for today. No matter where you are in Australia, be sure to dress appropriately and stay prepared. Now, let's move on to the next segment. We will see you a few seconds into a First Galaxy Australian 2K10 host reports in Australian Lads News Morning, so see you tomorrow.
Welcome back to Australian Lads News Morning. We just had a look at the weather with Yames Wandens 13, and now it's time to dive back into the latest top stories making headlines this morning. News 7, counting in the Werribee by-election is still underway. But even if Labour manages to scrape through, the Victorian government is just a few hundred disgruntled votes away from losing its grip on this heartland seat. That is a problem Jacinta Allen knows cannot be ignored. At the time of writing, Labour's once comfortable margin in Melbourne's Outer West has gone from 10.9% at the 2022 state election to a razor-thin 0.6%. The party's share of first preference votes plummeted from 45% to a dismal 28.7%. If this trend were replicated across the state, though this is unlikely given the different dynamics in each electorate, it would result in a devastating loss of 30-odd seats at the next election in 2026. Such a result would not only end the Labour's three-term hold on power but potentially leave it in the political wilderness for years to come. And while voters are able to distinguish between state and federal politics, several Victorian MPs in Canberra are also nervous the poor result could be replicated at the federal election, due to be called in the next few months. One federal MP said the result was proof of voter anger at the state government, which will brush off on the federal election. Anyone who claims it won't is kidding themselves. The reality is the Labour brand has taken a dive in Victoria. Another said, it just shows that we can't take Victoria for granted anymore. The result caps a horror week for Allen, who on Tuesday announced a vague review of the state's bail laws, only for one of the ministers overseeing the review to deny it existed on Wednesday. Then, on Thursday, it was revealed 8 people on bail had been left unmonitored for over a week, with the Attorney General only finding out due to a media inquiry. Speaking on Sunday, the Premier insisted she was the right person to lead her party. She said Victorians were looking for their governments to do more to ease cost of living pressures. I absolutely intend to look at what more we can do to support working people, Allen said. According to a state Labour MP, it's an admission the approach taken both in Victoria and at the federal level, retreating from spending as the Reserve Bank hiked interest rates, has hurt the very people the party is meant to represent. Or as one federal Labour MP put it, people might be earning more, they might be paying a little less tax, but the higher interest rates are making it harder for them to feel any real improvement. That's why it's not enough to say, look what we've done. We've got to do more. What more looks like, however, depends on who you ask. One state Labour MP suggested the party should return its focus to infrastructure, health, education, jobs, instead of trying to out-liberal the Liberals on crime. A group within caucus are also urging a shift of investment away from the suburban rail loop to local projects. All agree, however, it's a cue for action. It's a wake-up call for the Western Suburb MPs, for who these seats used to be a lottery ticket, a guaranteed job for life, to actually get out and engage with their constituents, a former Labour operative said. Another Labour source said, in the staff and caucus, there's this sense of hubris and entitlement to government that's the greatest enemy right now. We can get through it if we come together and remember who we're meant to represent. Allen chose to deliver her mea culpa outside Arden Station, on the yet-to-open Metro Tunnel train line. It served as a message to MPs that after years of construction and cost overruns, both the Metro Tunnel and the Westgate Tunnel are due to open later this year, offering them a chance to deliver something that will have an impact on voters' lives. One thing we've got that the Federals don't have is time, a state Labour MP said. By the time we get to next year, it's likely we will have had some successive rate cuts, people will be feeling more confident, we'll have a heap of new infrastructure running. The wind will be in our sails. News 8, Trump's attendance at the Super Bowl on Sunday in New Orleans stands to offer more evidence that the sporting climate has shifted from resistance to acceptance. Tom Dart. Saturday the 8th of February 2025, 18.25 GMT. Share. As a 2016 presidential candidate and White House occupant, Donald Trump lambasted NFL players for kneeling during the national anthem in protest at civil rights abuses. Now, set to become the first incumbent president to attend a Super Bowl, it appears that the US's most popular sport is genuflecting before him. Trump will reportedly attend the clash between the Kansas City Chiefs and Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday in New Orleans as a guest of Gayle Benson, the owner of the New Orleans Saints. A pre-recorded interview conducted by a Fox News anchor will also air during the pre-game show of an event that last year was viewed by more than 123 million Americans. And while he watches the action, Trump will not have to stare at a message inspired by the kind of diversity, equity and inclusion, DEI, strategies that he is intent on bulldozing. The real estate tycoon is back in the White House for the first time in 4 years, and for the first time in a Super Bowl since 2021 the message, "End Racism," will not be stenciled onto the field in one of the end zones. End Racism is a slogan the NFL began to promote after George Floyd, an unarmed black man, was murdered by a white police officer in Minneapolis in 2020. The phrase formed part of Inspire Change, a community social justice initiative the league launched in the wake of the former quarterback Colin Kaepernick's activism against racism and police brutality. Trump, however, sought to use the protests to rile up his base during his first term, urging team owners to fire players who kneeled during the anthem and encouraging fans to walk out. That drew a riposte from the NFL commissioner, Roger Goodell, who said that divisive comments like these demonstrate an unfortunate lack of respect for the NFL. Goodell told reporters on Monday that the league will continue its diversity efforts, and an NFL spokesman told The Athletic that "Choose Love" and "It Takes All of Us" will be written in the end zones as an appropriate response to the recent terrorist attack in New Orleans' French Quarter, the Washington air collision and the Los Angeles wildfires. Still, the slogan change and the president's planned presence in the Caesars Superdome are conspicuous at a time when American sports appear to be following the corporate sector in adopting policies of appeasement or silence towards Trump, who has signed executive orders aimed at eliminating DEI initiatives in the federal government and pressurizing private entities into stifling their programs. To his supporters this is a salvo in the war on woke. To his critics the tactic is a hallmark of a racist agenda. President Trump loves a victory lap, and this is certainly a victory lap over the NFL, says Brandon Rottinghorse, a politics professor at the University of Houston and co-director of the Presidential Greatness Project survey. The Trump dance became a viral celebration in the NFL after last November's election, while on Wednesday the Chiefs' biggest stars, quarterback Patrick Mahomes and tight end Travis Kelce, both said it will be cool to play in front of Trump. Kelce added that it will be awesome and a great honor, no matter who the president is. "I know I'm excited." His enthusiasm raised eyebrows since he is in a relationship with Taylor Swift. The pop star endorsed Kamala Harris in the election, and Trump responded by declaring, "I hate Taylor Swift," on social media. The basketball star LeBron James, who called Trump a bum in 2017 and supported Harris last year, is among the previously outspoken high-profile athletes who have kept quiet so far in Trump's second term. Of course, the administration is less than a month old. But Trump has been busy, issuing a flurry of directives on culture wars issues and inviting Elon Musk to eradicate large portions of the federal government. And Trump is explicitly using sports as a political tool, perhaps even more flagrantly than in his first term. At halftime of the college football playoff national championship on the 20th of January, Trump's inauguration day, ESPN, the leading American sports network, aired a video message from Trump that amounted to a political broadcast in which he said Americans had suffered greatly under the Biden administration. ESPN said the game averaged 22 million viewers, making it the most watched non-NFL sporting event of the past year. After campaigning on a pledge to keep men out of women's sports, on Wednesday, surrounded by young female athletes, Trump signed an executive order banning transgender athletes from taking part in women's sports, the latest in a series of gender-related directives. The NCAA, U.S. college sports governing body, fell in line the next day with what its president, Charlie Baker, described as Trump's clear national standard. Though a sitting president's Super Bowl attendance will be a novelty, American commanders-in-chief have a long tradition of attending baseball games. William Taft threw the ceremonial first pitch on opening day in Washington in 1910. George W. Bush, a former part owner of the Texas Rangers, famously took to the mound before a 2001 World Series game at Yankee Stadium in the aftermath of the September 11th attacks. Trump, though, is probably more interested in other sports, and not merely because he was booed and subjected to a chant of "lock him up" in 2019 while attending a Washington Nationals World Series game only 3 miles away from the White House. The U.S. will host the 2026 World Cup and the 2028 Olympic Games, and Trump, who has a chummy relationship with FIFA President Gianni Infantino, has a replica of the soccer trophy on prominent display in the Oval Office. "I anticipate seeing the president very involved in the pop culture and sports worlds. It's an easy way for him to connect to people," Rottinghorse says. Barack Obama attended games and filled out an annual college basketball prediction bracket, but his relationship with sports seemed driven by passionate fandom more than political calculation. Trump sees sports as a vehicle with a value that goes far beyond photo opportunities with celebrities. The infusion of sports culture and politics is a way that Donald Trump can demonstrate wins, Rotting Horse adds. It's one thing to eliminate DEI at agencies in government that most people have never heard of, it's another to get the NFL and individual teams to change the way that they message their product. That's a different kind of win. That's really the kind of thing that his supporters want. Well, that's all the news for this morning. We'll be back tomorrow at 4:30 a.m. for another edition of Australian Lads News Morning, bringing you the latest headlines to start your day. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you bright and early Tuesday morning.